if you look at stress like this is pressure, this is life, it's weighing me down, and then it will actually send you down that bad spiral.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm Sam.
I'm Brandon.
And this is the Middleton Methods podcast, where you get to be a fly on our wall to gain practical tips, get insight, and laugh at our expense.
Hopefully you learned something.
They will learn something.
Cool.
Let's talk about the Middleton madness. Holy cow, it's been crazy. So it's been 2 weeks since we've seen you.
Since you've seen them.
Well, that's true. Since I've seen you.
I
missed you guys. And my man held down the fort. I missed you guys. So 1 week, we clearly were like, okay, of the last, 80 episodes, we just needed a week. We were way behind. And then last week I was out of town and Brandon did a guest interview, which you saw. So that was exciting. But the madness is me being gone for 9 days. This is the longest I've...
9 days.
This is the longest I've been gone. So I had a business trip and I also tacked a couple of days on the front end to see a girlfriend of mine that I haven't seen in 2 years. So it was only 2 extra days, to see my girlfriend, but 9 days. And I knew if I didn't put that extra 2 days on the front end of my trip, I never would have stayed on the tail end. So that's why.
Thanks for taking that red eye home and getting back to us.
Oh, yeah. That's the only way to do it, right? Sleep all jacked up on the plane.
What was mad about it?
Well, certainly the biggest part for me was like just missing you guys all week. I did miss Peyton's dance recital, which crushed my heart. But after all that, and it's not even like selfishly I wanted to see her, right? But I've seen her all year. We've gone to her I've gone to her rehearsals all year long. So it's not like the big day, big deal, they're recording it or whatever. But as a mom, I want to be there for Peyton. Her and I are super close. So I just had to reframe my thinking to think she's got a good learning lesson about how mom can't be there for her every time and moment in her life, but I'm still there.
And I got the gift of being the dance dad, which was pretty cool. It was cool. I got this one-on-one experience with her. So
yeah, it was nice.
Where she didn't have you, she had twice as much of me, so it was good.
And I invited the babysitter. The babysitter had her friend come do Peyton's hair and makeup, so I got her a ticket to the recital too.
Her auntie, her best friend.
Yeah, her auntie and her best friend were there, and the babysitter took care of Max so that Brandon could have some time with Peyton, and they weren't all stressed out about having Max on top of it. And I gave them a laundry list of instructions.
This was hilarious. Friday? Was it Friday?
What?
Or Saturday?
What, the dress rehearsal?
Friday night. I get a text message that looks like, I don't know if you've ever blown up a iPhone text message, but if you send a text that is obscenely too long, because I've gotten some long text messages, it just puts in 4 sentences and then just cuts off the rest. You just have to hit this tiny little dot, dot, dot. And I almost didn't see it. So I was like, oh, Sam just has one instruction. This is not like her.
Yeah, right.
And then I hit it and it was I was like, whoa, all right. But I appreciated it because I printed it out and I had my flight checklist for the weekend.
That was in the group text with the babysitter. You should have seen the separate one I had to her too. Oh. She had another one because I was I didn't have time to go get extra makeup. I had to take my makeup that I had been using on her for other stuff. So yeah. I was like, I need you to go do me a favor and get this stuff. But it turned out really well. Everybody was happy. Everybody's alive.
We joke that it's madness, but I actually appreciated the time apart. 9 days gave me an extra opportunity with the kids because when husband and wife are together, then we have to divide time and chatter between 4 people, right?
Oh yeah, which
2
is
adults,
crazy.
2 kids. But when dad was the only one who was the adult in the house, I got to test some things with them. I got to be a little bit more patient because I had the extra space because I didn't have husband duties.
Me telling you what to do.
No. I didn't have husband duties. So it was all right, I got this extra time
to just focus on the kids.
To just focus on them. So we had a couple of rough nights with them missing you and stuff, but overall it strengthened the family unit. Don't do it again for a little while.
October.
Okay. Well, you're not going West Coast.
No.
Yeah.
No, and I won't be gone for 9 days either.
So that was the madness. So for those parents out there,
Oy.
especially if you're like us, we've worked together for so many years. We like work at home. We're always together. Every now and then you might want to experiment with one of you just having like a ladies' trip or a guys' trip for that purpose, not like I'm escaping, because that's not at all.
Oh
what
yeah,
this was.
escaping
Like,
is not the reason to do
right.
it.
More like, I don't know how to put it, but
You know, there was a long time.
I want to plan that a little bit more intentionally, but we'll probably have business.
Well,
where we have to be.
pre-kids, we had the option to always travel together. And post-kids, it's been so different. It's a lot harder to travel together. And this was one of those trips where we had to like seriously debate. It's summertime. We could have gone as a family, but I wouldn't have seen y'all anyway. So what's the difference? It's spending all the money. And then you could have gone to the business trip and networked and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, somebody had to be there with those kiddos. And if we're going to take, our biggest reasoning for him not going was if we're going to take a few days together to go travel somewhere, it is not going to be for business right now. It's going to be for husband and wife time.
Yep.
Husband and wife time. You're going to hold my leg, but my mic's down there. Mm-hmm. Well, my mic's not down there, but the mic pack is down there. Anyway.
What's our topic today?
We're getting a little serious today.
Yes.
We're talking about depression and love. And I think where this stemmed from is Brandon literally just, he's like a social media, I don't know. I don't want to say any bad words. What's like a word? I don't know. He's just not on social media a lot. Right.
I don't like pop culture, and I don't like...
So he doesn't just notice things that are going on, like the recent passing...
I just noticed late, which is fine with me.
The recent passing of Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, which is crazy, right? They both committed suicide. And so that's our topic today, is depression and love, because even though the whole world knew about this a couple weeks ago besides you, this is a really serious topic. This is one that Brandon and I have debated a lot. Just the whole thought of being depressed. And we're going to do our best to be super sensitive to it, because we believe that there are a lot of ways to prevent it. But we want to be sensitive to the fact that some people do lose their lives over it.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And speaking of that, one of the biggest things for me, and I recorded a short video I may or may not release when I first found out about this, was
Jeez, I did not see this.
That I think the worst thing that we can do when hearing news like this is to let the story just be that. A story, a water cooler conversation. Don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about, right? It's just like, oh, that sucks for them. At least my life's not that bad. It's something to talk about, and then on to the next, who's the next celebrity that's going to die, or next drama we're going to talk about. When some tragedy like this happens, I think in order for them to not die in vain, that we have to take a lesson from that. We have to learn something from that. Anytime it happens, and if nothing else, right, they obviously made contributions to the world and their families and the people around them and stuff. And in addition to that, as a consumer of that information, I think it's our responsibility to take something away from that so that we can grow. So
yeah, and so let's move on and talk about this, because, and I want to just be really clear, we're not talking about suicide today. We're talking about depression, unhappiness.
Depression leads to suicide.
And depression does lead to that. So, there's a lot of people in our lives that we may know that aren't super happy. They're not happy with their circumstances, their situations. They don't have good attitudes. And these things can result in death.
Let's get to the facts. I did some research. 350 million people are affected by some form of depression globally. 350 million. That's almost, I think they said it's like 1.6, depending on what year you're. It's basically almost 2 out of 5.
Wow, that's interesting. And what I thought was really interesting about the statistic is you said
it's common,
70% of them are women.
Yeah, women are 70% more likely to battle with depression.
And I want to wonder why. Is it just because we're more emotional? More emotional creatures?
Society. Women have a different role in societies.
I guess we're painted to be thin and pretty and in shape, and I mean those are
there's
things.
There's more like society demands on women potentially. There's the whole house structure, right? still today, many, even though women are equal. And
the men are so busy providing, they don't have time to be depressed.
Right. Or they get their validation from work. They get their needs met in other ways that they don't.
In the workplace and stuff.
Where if mom's at home with the kids, or, mom doesn't bring as much money to the home, then
it can be a stress factor.
Men use money a lot as a control in the house to control the power, to control the women. It's some tough stuff.
That's a true statement. I mean, you don't 95% of the time. You try to slip it in every once in a while, and I go, no, don't go there.
What else do we have? 50% of those people don't seek any treatment, and for that I question why.
That's a really good question.
And because so many people battle with it, I heard a statistic that more than 50% of people will struggle with depression at some point in their life. I believe that's probably more likely to be true. I just couldn't find an actual citable website or document to say that. But I believe it probably is more than that. If you're being honest with yourself, like I know if I went to the doctor, they probably would have said that I was struggling with depression at some time. Certainly after losing my mom, certainly after some of the hardships that we've gone through. So we all struggle with it. I think it'd be naive to think that like depression...
At the first 2 years of Max's life, that was a key opportunity for any doctor to say, possibly that we were psychotic too.
Right. So why do you think... So half people don't seek treatment, probably because maybe a percentage of those feel like they can handle it, right?
So I'll speak from experience. There was a very small, after Peyton, I was like, I don't understand how any woman can say postpartum depression. I just don't get it. And I started to realize that I think that was because I had a lot of support from you in the house. And so it was really easy going after Peyton was born. There was this glimpse of time, this period of time from the time Max was like born to, I'd say about 9 months old, where I did a few times during that piece of time wonder like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting these like glimpses. Right. It was a lot of pull out hair moments, and he was not as easy of a baby as Peyton, but you were also disconnected from Max when he was when he was an infant. And it
wasn't just you, Max, watching this down in the future. It was the addition of going from one child to two. Definitely felt like going from one child to four.
And the main thing was it was you. It was inside your head and things you were struggling with as being a father of a not easy baby like Peyton was. But it did kind of affect the whole house, And there was this like tiny piece of time where I was like, oh my gosh, is this what they say is postpartum? And I mean, I'm kind of the mindset to go, no woman snap out of it and go talk to Brandon about it and do that, but not everybody does do that. And so then I did understand how women could get postpartum depression, but it wasn't until I thought, is this possibly me? But I'm a firm believer in always going on those is this possibly me moments to nip it in the bud. So that may be a reason why people don't go seek help, is because who wants to admit? Like some people are more victim mentality and they like the attention they get off saying, I'm depressed and I take medication. But then there are other people that don't, they're too prideful. They don't want to admit that, right? I'm one of those people. I don't want to admit when something is wrong.
Right, but you also...
With me. When something's wrong with me, I don't want to admit it.
Because of the amount of personal development training that you've had, and the amount of seminars and workshops that we've gone to, you know how powerful your mind is and how powerful words are and stories. Like, you know that you can change by just changing the perspective or the way that you think about something, or the story you tell yourself, like saying, oh, this always happens to me. I'm always a victim of this. There's nothing I can do about it. Like, those are stories that we can play in our head. That's why I made that video about guarding your mind. Like, you have to stand gate at your mind, because if you don't, if you want to call it the devil, the enemy, society, whatever, like, people will put stuff in your head. That other little voice, that little devil on your shoulder will put that other story in your head. So I think you tend to just be like, nope, I'm just going to change the story. I'm going to change it. And then it may not be as graceful and it may take a little bit, more time, but we tend to work through that stuff either individually and or together.
Yeah.
Antidepressants, I hate pharmaceutical companies with a passion. If you know my story about my mom.
And the quick and dirty is the medications literally broke down his mom over time, and that's why she passed. Yeah. It was just too many years of using drugs.
Too easy to prescribe. But I did not realize that antidepressants are the top 3 most common used drugs. Top 3. I mean, caffeine's a drug. Tylenol's a drug. I mean, I don't know what the other 2, but one of the top 3. So that might be number 1 or number 2. But the point is, when it comes to pills being processed, the pharmaceutical companies make a killing, which, in fact, is another statement that $80 billion annually is spent on healthcare and lost productivity just due to the issue of depression. That's crazy. There is big money in saying, oh, the commercials on TV, right? Right? All the pharmaceutical commercials, you're like, man, what's that disease? I need to get some of that. They're flying kites, hanging out with hot chicks, and rowing canoes. Like, whatever they have, I need that because it looks awesome, right? So,
but a lot of the side effects of those medications is suicide.
Yeah, right?
A lot of them. If you listen to, and they're always the most pleasant voice, side effects, maybe, and, suicide is on a lot of those. I listen to those commercials, let's hear what the side effects are of this one, that are 20 times more side effects than there are positive results of them.
Yeah. So our point in sharing all these stats is just to state the problem is an epidemic. I mean, it is a huge challenge.
Here's a question. How come when somebody starts taking an antidepressant, what I would like to do a little bit more research on this. I know we didn't talk much before, about these statistics before we started recording, but what is the statistics of people that start taking them and stop versus the doctors that keep them on, which I'm sure is astronomically high, the amount of people that stay on them. And the reason I ask is my dad's a really good...
you can measure that.
My dad is a really good example. He's been on antidepressants for years. He decided to tell me when I was 7.5 months pregnant with Peyton that he almost took his life when I was 14. And he was my sole caretaker at the time. That is a crazy story to hear when I'm pregnant with my first child, and my dad decides of all the years he could have told me that that's the one moment in time he wants to tell me that he almost took his life at a time that he was supposed to be taking care of me. But all these years later, he's still on them. Is there not something that's helped him by now? That's a lot of time. I'm 36 years old this weekend. Happy birthday to me! But yeah,
we are not doctors. We are not mental health experts. We're just sharing what worked for us.
It just makes my mind wander.
Here's what I believe based on zero scientific experience, just our own life experience. I believe that antidepressants are just a Band-Aid to a bigger problem. So antidepressants or SSRIs make serotonin and dopamine go off in your brain, right? That's the feel-good drug. So you feel like crap, you take a pill, you feel better. Forget the side effects of it and all, but so that's a Band-Aid that if every day I woke up and I could just feel a little bit better, if you could just get high every day on some other drug, it would be pretty easy if you didn't have to deal with any of the side effects. So I believe that's why. If you never solve the root problem in your mind, if you don't strengthen your mind, then the Band-Aid only makes you weaker in my mind because it says, oh, here's a illusion of a fix. So you get to push off this problem and getting stronger mentally a little bit longer and a little bit longer and a little bit longer. So just when you work out your body, imagine if you could just take juice, all the time, right? You could just take testosterone and be but not actually have to work out that much. Eventually, it would catch up to you, and it's going to run out.
Got it. I mean? Yeah, so. Yeah, no, that's a really, really good point.
Cool. So, I want you to imagine if you struggle with this in the past, if you struggle with it now, I want you to imagine the possibility of anytime a big challenge comes up, anytime self-doubt or the little devil on your shoulder or whatever creeps into your head, or suicidal thoughts or anything, I want you to imagine what would be possible if your mind was stronger, if you told yourself more empowering stories. Instead of victim stories, you told yourself victor stories, right? Instead of saying, this always happens to me, or I'll never make it out of poverty, or I'm never good enough, or whatever, I'll never get the promotion, she'll never understand me, the kids are never going to get behaved. Instead of telling yourself those stories, you told yourself more empowering stories. How would your life be different?
I love it. And that's actually true story stuff that we've done.
How would your business be different? How would your family be different? How would your marriage be different? Probably more importantly, how would your legacy, how would your children's life be different when they see mom or dad deal with those things? Then they don't become victims.
It's like having a vision board or having your goals written down and looking at them all the time. And when you're taking those small actions every single day consistently to get to those things, the result is going to be living a happier life with a happier peace of mind and all that comes with that.
So the topic of the podcast was called Depression and Love. So we've obviously covered depression. So I want to share a story that I think is one of the main paths with our walk down what may or may not have been depression. All I know is the only time I went and saw a psychiatrist, I was 12 years old, smoked a little weed and was going through some adolescent, teenage, hormonal crap. Like, I thought my life was crazy and I was a rebel and a punk. So my mom said, go talk to the doctor. After the first visit, they prescribed me Paxil for anxiety disorder. So in my mind, I always told myself, well, you go to a shrink, you go to a therapist, the answer is always going to be to drug. And I obviously watched my mom get prescribed everything for everything, and it didn't solve the problem because mentally you got to have it, right? We already covered that. So now here I am, 34 years old, right? 34 in a week or two. And
not even, your birthday's this week too. Whoop, whoop.
Right. Life is different. Life has even more challenges, more pressure, adding family, marriage, business changes, the market changes, all types of pressure, right? So what worked for us when we were a single couple, very free to pick up and do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted, is very different than now. So it's been, 3 years since I went to the doctor, right?
Yeah.
For another physical.
I think, yeah.
And so I go and I talk to the doctor.
Yeah, I haven't been since Max was born.
So this time, I'm paying an absurd amount of money for health insurance. And I don't really care what... I used to be worried about what you fill out your questionnaire on. This time, I didn't care. Because I'm worried about my life insurance. I'm like, do they share this information? Should I say something? And then they blow it out of proportion. And so this time, I was just every question they asked, I was almost overly honest. I would like you to just ask me about this, ask me about this, ask me about this. So that I could just be all right, doctor, because we went to a very, very, very good doctor with great ratings. So I was she's not going to just treat me like a number. So I sat with her and I talked to her about all these things. And of course, we get to the portion about, I don't think it was depression, but stress. That's what it was. So,
yeah.
So stress, just so you know, you can look it up yourself, but stress and the way that you think about stress actually makes you sick. If you look at stress doing push-ups in the gym is stress. It's stress on the body. But it's necessary stress in order to get pecs, period. End of story. To get stronger, you got to do the push-ups. It's good. It's a positive thing, stress. If you look at stress this is pressure, this is life, it's weighing me down, and then it will actually send you down that bad spiral. So we're talking about stress because I want to make sure that I'm not a crazy person, which I might be just a little bit, but I'm so here's how I feel about stress. There are times when, I'm strong, and there are times when I'm not so strong, and here's how I deal with stress in positive ways. Here's how I deal with stress in negative ways, and I want your medical advice because you see everything. And you know what she winds up telling me? She doesn't tell me.
She says, go home, love on your wife.
No, she doesn't.
Make love.
Yeah. Yes. She
Go
said,
do good, go exercise.
Sex solves all stress problems.
Does she?
It as much as...
You're making that up. Just like the doctor told you have anxiety disorder because you smoke weed.
Maybe the weed just gave me anxiety.
I think his mom paid the doctor off.
That would be smart of her.
That's what I would have the doctor tell my kids.
So what did she tell me? So first of all, I find out she's a Jehovah's Witness, which was interesting, right? So she's Christian, I think, right?
I have no clue. You're asking the wrong person.
But she winds up not telling me about
Christian,
Valium or I don't know what the other drugs are. Point is,
what's the punchline on this one?
The point is, she's telling me, she's asking me more questions about faith. She's asking me questions about like holistic things. She's asking me questions and challenging me to basically seek the answer myself or get stronger in those areas that I want to get stronger in my own head. Like, that simple. She wasn't like, I think you need to go sit on a couch and talk to somebody. No. And we deal with a lot of stress, right? We deal with a lot as
I think so. It's interesting because I went to the same doctor just a few days later, and I ticked off stress sometimes. I wrote on the form because I want that clearly to know that I'm not stressed out all the time, all strong going in there. And so she and I talked about that as well, and it was a different conversation. She just asked me, like, what stresses me out? And I just said, we just have seasons sometimes where everything is just busy. Those are the times where I'm a little bit more stressed, but I know that they're short term. And so I just focus on my outcome, and then we get through that time and I'm not stressed anymore. And then, sometimes it's in the season. And so we didn't really talk about it very long. Maybe I struggle with it more internally than I do.
I'm a very analytical person. So
you
I
are.
Ask
you
a
are.
ton of questions. So I'm like, yeah, but what if? And tell me about the research back behind that. And
and I'm like, I'm okay. Okay, great. Let's move on.
Right. And during all of this, I also put myself in my mom's shoes, right? Who struggled with depression amongst many other ailments. And thinking about my mom and what she went through, I started to just think like super simple. Like, what is the worst possible thing a human can go through, like emotionally, and like what is it?
I think
you? I'll tell you I think it is.
I was gonna say that depends on everybody, I guess.
I think the worst thing is to be alone. Like, to be...
I was just gonna say the worst thing for me would be to not feel loved, which is pretty much the same
right. Well,
thing.
If you're alone, who's gonna love you but you? Mm-hmm. Which is hard when you're in a depressed state to love yourself. Right? Yeah. So I want to just take a moment to remind people and to praise you for all the seasons that we've gone through. It's no surprise that no matter how much craziness was going on around us, that we always had each other, right? Mm-hmm. We're never alone. Even if clients were crazy, or people were fake friends, or people who were using us, or were there for a season, or whatever, like, no matter what the whole rest of our universe was, like, the two people that would never leave were us. So we always had each other, which, of course, love is there. So
I guess that's a really good point just to think about as a spouse. And did I totally interrupt you? Do you need to close that out?
Nope.
Because a lot of relationships that I'm realizing, there's some really strong couples that they feel the same way. There's ride or diers coming out of the mix, since we started the podcast, where I go, yeah, like, we got more people on our team, right? And then there's a lot of people that I hear don't have that relationship with their spouse. So I challenge you to not seek that from your friends if you're married, to go seek that from your spouse. It's nice to have your friends. Sometimes it's nice to talk to your friends over your spouse. Sometimes your spouse can be judgmental. Brandon is like that. I am like that with Brandon sometimes. And when we love each other so much, we want the best for each other. And sometimes Brandon doesn't see things the way that I think he should see them. And I can be a little judgmental about a situation, or vice versa, right? But all in all, like, we still 99% of the time will seek results from each other before other people. And if I feel like him or I are going to our friends more than we're going to each other, I will call it out. I know I called you out on it, not super recently, but recently enough where I just felt like we were talking to other people more than we were talking to ourselves. It's so easy with so many things going on, or parenting is another one, to just talk to our friends about it. But at the end of the day, like at the core, it's us. We got to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. So I just challenge, partners in crime out there to go to each other and really grow that between the two of you. Because at the end of the day, kids are going to grow up, they're going to leave the nest. Friends are going to come and go. The one thing that when you say your vows, that's supposed to be the one consistent thing besides God that you have for the rest of your life, right? And, family is going to come and go. You're not going to get along with them all the time. Like, this is the one bond that's there, treat it well. Treat it well.
That's right.
So let's just talk about the last part.
Last part. I just want to give you guys some specific action items. So, number one, I already said it once, but I cannot stress saying it again. Guard your mind. Guard it, guard it, guard it, guard it. Watch the stuff that you watch the stuff that you hear. Be careful of what you let in your mind. I'm specifically speaking to men because, as the statistics state, if women are 70% more likely and you are a married man, you need to double down on your strength because obviously she's more liable, susceptible to the attack, right? So be extremely cautious of what you let into your head. You've got to keep it strong and you got to keep the good stuff in and let the bad stuff go. Number two, ask for help. Don't do this stuff alone. Now, if you don't have your spouse that you can lean on, if you don't have family that you trust or very close friends that are like family that you trust, private message us. Again, we are not family. We are not board certified health experts or mental health experts, but we can share.
But we have been through some
right
shit
direction.
And back.
Yes.
And we can give some insight on our experiences.
Yes. I love 8tracks.com, 8tracks.com/Brandon T. Middleton. If you want all my favorite tracks, that stuff is my secret weapon. I say it all the time, and I don't think anybody has ever commented that they've used it. So
I have.
Take a challenge.
I have. You only had to say it 1,000 times,
right.
But I do.
Yep.
It's good stuff. It's great to run to. I don't like running to it all the time because I like good music too, but I listen to that when I'm running. It's motivating.
Oh, and one... I know this is so late, but what was common between both Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain? They both had divorce within the last year or something.
Well, Kate Spade was not divorced, but yes, they were living separately.
Okay, done.
It was going down that path, probably.
Right. Pay attention. All right, guys, the last thing, do the work. Do the work. It's work. It's work. It's work. It's never going to get easier, right? You just get stronger. So it's not supposed to get easier, just like push-ups never get easy. Like, ask a big bodybuilder. He's going to be like, yeah, well, I'm this big and I'm super strong, but I'm also now 100 pounds heavier to push up. So it's just always going to it's never going to get easier. I love Jim Rohn, who says, don't ask for less problems, ask for more skill, right? So you become stronger. And, that's it, guys. That's all I got for you.
And I will say, you want to just focus on the things that are going right. And this is nothing new that we have never mentioned before. It's not mind-blowing information here, but repetition, right? Focus on what is going right. I can catch myself focusing on the wrong things sometimes. I have to train my brain to recognize that and squash it and move on and start focusing about the things that are going right. I was gone for 9 days, okay? I could have come home and found 1,000 things going wrong here because I wasn't here. The kids weren't on their schedule while I was gone. They weren't taking their naps all the time. They weren't going to bed on time. There were lots of stuff that happened while I was gone that was a little off kilter, but there were all these things that stop it. There were all these things that totally went right. They may not have gotten naps, but they were around all these people that love them so much. They were getting tons of attention. They were going out and having fun. There were all these great things that were happening to them. At the end of the day, all the bad stuff doesn't really matter because there was plenty of good stuff to overpower it. And then finally, we have the suicide hotline. Read the number.
Yeah, someone you know.
Sometimes it's not a safe place, or you don't feel like it could be a safe place to talk to somebody you know or you love or a friend or family. You might not think that anybody gets you. If you don't feel like anybody gets you and you are in this situation, call somebody that can help. 1-800-273-8255. That's important.
Yep.
That's important.
I think we should end it there.
All right. Well,
You're not alone.
Our hearts go
Whether
out.
you're this little bit of a depression or suicidal thoughts, they are equally as terrible and should be treated equally as seriously.
Yep. And our hearts go out to both friends and family that lost, with Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, as well as anybody that has been a victim to suicide or depression, because it's a sad subject for sure.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Hope that helped you. Hope you got some things to write down, take away, and we'll sign off here. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes, and give us a review. Help share this with someone you think needs to hear it. And we'll see you next week for another episode of the Middleton Methods podcast.
Take care.